I'd tell Brady to fight the emotion of defending himself publicly, lawyer up, and begin to devise a game plan to beat the NFL through the court system. However, he adds that Brady will face a different challenge because Goodell led the investigation on Bountygate, unlike Deflategate led by Ted Wells. Vilma went on to say, we base our argument off of Goodell being the face of the Bountygate witch hunt. He hasn't done that this time around. I don't know how he accuses Goodell of being too biased to the arbiter. I was able to prove he was biased and then let all the facts start coming out in a neutral setting. All right, so that's advice. We had Vilma on the show, actually, and he talked about it. So, Skip, do you agree with what he is actually telling Tom Brady to do?
Stephen A. Smith, as you recall, I was with Jonathan Vilma throughout the entire Bountygate controversy, and I am with him now. We've had Jonathan sit right here on this show. I've gotten to know him a little bit. This is a tough-minded, strong-minded, high-principled man who went to battle against Roger Goodell. As you recall, and Kerry just alluded to, he sued Roger Goodell. He won the right to a truly independent arbitrator, not some Harold Henderson from the league office. He got the ex-commissioner Paul Tagliabue to review the case of Bountygate, and Paul Tagliabue made Roger Goodell look foolish because he rescinded all of these suspensions, including Jonathan Vilma's. So Vilma sued, got an injunction, and got to play, and then won the battle against Roger Goodell. And he's exactly right now, Stephen A. Let your lawyers speak loudly for you, and if it comes to it, in court. As you know, I'm a Tom Brady fan, and I feel like right here, right now, Stephen A., I owe Mr. Brady an apology. I was with you from day one, the day after the Wells investigation was released, the report. I was with you in spirit because I wanted my guy Tom Brady to please stand up and speak out, and he wouldn't do it. We saw him at Salem State University. He was still mealy-mouthed. He was still, golly gee, we'll see. He was still shrugging it off. And you said, and I agreed with you, it's time to defend yourself, just as you, Stephen A. Smith, would have stood up and spoken loudly to defend yourself if you felt you had been wrongly accused. I would have stood up and defended myself in the same circumstance. But listen, I think Tom Brady might just have the last laugh here. He's doing it the right way. He's doing it the legal way. And I think his actions through court, through his legal team, will speak much louder than he could in public. Again, I wish just for the spirit of it. We're going to deal with this question later. Has his image been permanently tainted? We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Now we have a new ABC poll that indicates it probably has been. I'm with you on that, Stephen A. But again, who's going to have the last laugh here? Who's going to be vindicated in the end? I think Tom Brady is now going about it the right way, the way he does on the football field, which is to let your game speak for you, or in this case, let the facts that you know that you're going to exhibit in court speak loudest for you. So I am so with Jonathan Vilma. I'm glad he said what he said. And I apologize to Tom Brady. Again, I don't know whether he's innocent or not. Right. But I want him to have his day in court, and apparently he is going to get it.
Time out. So you're saying Jonathan Vilma, what he said actually changed your perspective on how Brady should?
Just the whole last 3 days. And again, I don't want to beat this to death, but I've talked to several confidants close to Brady, and they say he is insisting he is 100% innocent and wrongly convicted here. Okay. And that has changed my perception, just to fall back and say, I'm still open-minded. Okay. Now, again, maybe I'm not objective, because you well know for years and years on this show I've been a Brady fan and Brady supporter, New England supporter, but I'm now open-minded to hearing what Tom Brady and company and legal team have to say in court. I'm not going to leap to the conclusion that he's a cheater just yet. Maybe in the end I will. Okay. But right now he deserves his day in court, and Jonathan Vilma is correct. He's going to get it.
All right, Stephen A. So Skip is saying that he's holding off on judgment. He likes what Jonathan Vilma had to say, and it changed his perspective as to how Tom Brady should go about it. Your take? Do you agree with Vilma?
No, I don't. I don't agree with Skip Bayless either. And let me say this. I mean, I don't understand why you're apologizing. What are you apologizing for? Just for keeping an open mind? I mean, I don't think the apology is necessary. Let's see how everything transpires and what the ultimate conclusion is before we dole out apologies. When I apologized to the New Orleans Saints and Jonathan Vilma and Drew Brees and everybody else, it was in the aftermath of Vilma going through the court system. It was in the aftermath of a verdict. It was in the aftermath of Paul Tagliabue making the decision that he made that made Roger Goodell look foolish. It was in the aftermath of all of that. Prior to that, you know, silly me, I was of the conclusion that the NFL, being a multi-billion-dollar establishment, would make sure that their investigators are top-notch and that they had dotted all their I's and crossed all their respective T's. And particularly as it pertained to Bountygate, that did not appear to be the case. But I think it's important in this particular sequence, Skip Bayless, to highlight the discrepancies, or rather the differences, between Bountygate and Deflategate. Bountygate, you essentially had a situation where Roger Goodell and the NFL surmised that Greg Williams, the former defensive coordinator, obviously was essentially putting bounties and hits out on opposing players. Greg Williams definitely acquiesced to that, you know, those accusations. He confirmed it because he certainly didn't deny it. He certainly dimed other people out. Ultimately, it cost Sean Payton a year of his career as a head football coach simply because, you know, of his dereliction of duty as a head coach, because obviously Greg Williams worked under him. Mickey Loomis, the general manager, it cost him 8 games because, you know, he's a leader within the organization, and it was his job as well to pretty much streamline this kind of stuff and reel these boys in. Jonathan Vilma fought because Jonathan Vilma was saying, I'm a football player. I went out there to play football. I did not go out there to intentionally hurt anybody. I did not have any bounties on individuals. How dare you accuse me of such an egregious and an unethical thing? And obviously he was in a position to do that. In this particular instance, Skip Bayless, the footballs were deflated. There is no denying that. And because there's no denying that the footballs are deflated, now it becomes an issue as to whether or not Tom Brady knew about this and condoned this. That really is the issue in question. Now, he can sit there and deny it until the cows come home. But in the end, there is no denying that the quarterback had to know the footballs were deflated. Now, if you want to sit there and debate whether he literally told somebody something or whatever the case may be, okay, fight all day to preserve your reputation, because he certainly had an impeccable one. But there is no denying that 11 of the 12 footballs were below the legal limit. And that's the issue here. Jonathan Vilma was denying that he was a part of a bounty. He was denying that he was a part of something so egregious and so unethical as it pertained to him and who he is and what he stands for. That is a character issue. And obviously you have to have concrete evidence to convict him of that, which is why he was absolutely right to fight it. Because he said, I don't care what Greg Williams or anybody else has to say. I'm telling you what I did not do. That's what I am telling you. So he was in a position of strength. In the case of Tom Brady, the footballs were deflated. You're the quarterback. You touch the football more than anybody. You're the one that gets a snap to you from behind center. You're the one handing it off to running backs. You're the one throwing it to tight ends and to receivers, and in some cases, running backs coming out of the backfield to catch passes. You touch the ball more than anybody. So you can sit there and say, well, I didn't tell somebody something, and it might be an issue of veracity, whether you believe them or don't believe them. But there is no debating that the footballs were deflated. Whereas in the case of Jonathan Vilma, how are you going to beat him at a debate about his character? You don't know what was in his heart. Unless you can find some money trail where he actually received money, it's essentially you saying, oh, you went out there to put a bounty against guys. And Jonathan Vilma saying, no, I did no such thing. This case is entirely different from Bountygate. So his advice is appreciated, but the legs upon which Tom Brady has to stand are considerably more shaky than what Jonathan Vilma had to stand.
Very interesting. I have two quick responses to what you just said. How do you know for sure the footballs were deflated? Because there is a glaring discrepancy in the Wells report we talked about yesterday that Mr. Wells himself failed to answer, handed the phone off to his partner to answer, who gave a very murky, hazy, sort of unconvincing answer about which gauge was used by Walt Coleman, the referee, before the game, and which gauge was then used to measure the footballs at halftime. Was it this gauge or was it this gauge? It's murky. Then I read yesterday this research firm that was hired by the Wells Group and ultimately by the league to verify, evaluate and verify the findings at halftime by the league has come under fire before from critics, including engineers, attorneys, and academics who say the company tends to deliver to clients the reports they need to mount a public defense. This is all going to come up in court. I don't know whether this is true or not, but what I'm saying is all this is still murky to me about whether they were underinflated. Then let me make one last point. It is highly possible that all Tom Brady ever said to those equipment men, those ball boys, if you will, was, I like my footballs inflated at the lower end of regulation. And they took it upon themselves, or maybe they had an order from above to take it down another notch, a step below regulation. How do you know that? The Wells report proves nothing on that account. There is no smoking gun tying Tom Brady to ordering the footballs to be underinflated at below regulation. Sure, he might have said, put them at the low end, but should he be judged guilty off that? That's what they're going to try to prove in court. Trust me.
Well, I mean, I definitely understand and appreciate your point, Skip Bayless, but forgive me because I read the report as well, but forgive me for surmising that the one thing that wasn't debatable is that the footballs were deflated.
Well, some were and some weren't.
Allow me to finish. What I'm saying to you is that the week before Super Bowl week, Bill Belichick addressed it. The week before Super Bowl week, Tom Brady addressed it. The Super Bowl week itself, Robert Kraft addressed it. And the issue in question was never whether or not the footballs were deflated. The issue in question was what level of guilt should be attached to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick for the footballs actually being deflated. So forgive me, I just glossed over the issue of actual deflation of the football.
Okay.
I've been assuming that everyone understood that 11 of the 12 footballs were deflated. The only issues in question was whether or not Tom Brady and Bill Belichick directly or indirectly had something to do with it. So I'm not even going. I mean, all the stuff that you just dropped from the Wells report, I'm not going to dispute any of that. I am telling you that Tom Brady, I never once heard him deny that the footballs were deflated. I never once heard Bill Belichick deny that the footballs were deflated. A matter of fact, what I recall was Bill Belichick giving some kind of, and he was far from a scientist, as he openly admitted, but he was giving reasons as to why the footballs may have been deflated.
No.
So, I mean, what do you want me to say?
Okay.
I can't make an argument that the footballs weren't deflated.
But if you carefully read the Wells report, one gauge had them properly inflated and a second gauge had them underinflated. Well, I don't know. Look, I don't know. But this is going to have to be proven in a court of law at some point.
Well, look, so to that end, gentlemen, you guys are already taking us there. Let's consider the next step. How he accuses Goodell of being too biased to the arbiter. I was able to prove he was biased and then let all the facts start coming out in a neutral setting. All right, so that's advice. We had Vilma on the show, actually, and he talked about it. So, Skip, do you agree with what he is actually telling Tom Brady to do?
Stephen A. Smith, as you recall, I was with Jonathan Vilma throughout the entire Bounty Gate controversy, and I am with him now. We've had Jonathan sit right here on this show. I've gotten to know him a little bit. This is a tough-minded, strong-minded, high-principled man who went to battle against Roger Goodell, as you recall, and Kerry just alluded to. He sued Roger Goodell. He won the right to a truly independent arbitrator, and he's exactly right now, Stephen A. Let your lawyers speak loudly for you, and if it comes to it, in court. As you know, I'm a Tom Brady fan, and I feel like right here, right now, Stephen A., I owe Mr. Brady an apology. I was with you from day one, the day after the Wells investigation was released, the report. not some Harold Henderson from the league office. He got the ex-commissioner Paul Tagliabue to review the case of Bountygate, and Paul Tagliabue made Roger Goodell look foolish because he rescinded all of these suspensions, including Jonathan Vilma's. So Vilma sued, got an injunction, and got to play, and then won the battle against Roger Goodell.
I'd tell Brady to fight the emotion of defending himself publicly, lawyer up, and begin to devise a game plan to beat the NFL through the court system. However, he adds that Brady will face a different challenge because Goodell led the investigation on Bountygate, unlike Deflategate led by Ted Wells. Vilma went on to say, we based our argument off of Goodell being the face of the Bountygate witch hunt. He hasn't done that this time around. I don't know how